protect you from Paul.
I have to ask you out for dinner. Now I have to ask you out for dinner in public.
Hey, you never ask me out for dinner.
Oh God, your dinners are too expensive for me.
It's not the dinner, it's the wine.
It's the wine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I took.
Hey, Doug and Pat, are we gonna be able to see you? Coming in
What am I
on
supposed
camera for us today?
Oh,
There we
there's-
go. All right.
Whoa.
And Carlton, I'm not sure who Carlton is.
Doorman.
That's the
I'm a
doorman.
member of AMCOM located in Redondo Beach, California.
Oh, okay. Hi,
welcome,
welcome.
welcome.
An employee of Stephen Deals. I'm sure y'all know who that is.
Oh,
Yeah, for
Steve,
sure.
wow.
And
I'm
Amcom's
working
been a
for my
member of
I'm
Camex
working
a
for
long
my
time.
camera right now, so give me a moment.
Okay. And I'm thinking Michael Leibowitz is going to be joining us as well. I'm going to wait for a couple minutes if you don't mind. get
We'll
people
keep
in.
ourselves busy.
Not at
Yeah.
all.
Hi, Carlton.
Hello, hello. It's a
Hello,
pleasure.
Carlton. I invited
I
Doug.
get all of Linda's emails constantly.
All of my nagging emails.
Carlton, we're just talking about wine and Doug Swift, and I invited Doug and Brad. Oh my God, what's the fellow's name from Texas? Doug?
Billy Papard.
Billy.
Oh.
Uh-oh, trouble.
To golf at Hamilton, and afterwards, of course, we stayed for dinner, and we put Doug in charge of ordering the wine. And
Uh-oh.
that's got to be 4 years ago. And to this date, like the wine steward says, "Where's Mr. Swift? When are you going to invite Mr. Swift back? When are you going to invite Mr. Swift back?"
I thought you were saying you're still paying off the bill 4 years later.
My question is, did you ever get the wine?
Did we ever get the wine?
Or did
Yes.
Doug have it all?
Well, let me.
Oh, no, I'm a kind person. I shared it. It was,
I had to send them home in a limousine. So
Enough said.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's-
that was a good evening.
yeah,
And by limousine, that was the BMO bus.
that was the BMO bus. Yes.
Oh my gosh, you got to tell everybody about the BMO bus that doesn't know about that one, Paul.
Well,
That
it fi-
was a
finally-
one of a kind.
It finally broke down, but and it would probably it was broken from the time I bought it, but yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I remember you getting it to Montreal one time and parking it in our parking lot. And I got the chance to do the grand tour in the stationary mode.
Were we able to get it started on the way back? Because that was the usual case. Yeah.
You did, you brought down a whole troop then, and you were doing your monthly managerial meeting. And so
We
you
did.
did it on the 401
We did.
on the way
Yes,
down,
that's
on the way
right.
back.
Yes.
I
we
thought
did.
that was real smart.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
went for a whole ski trip to Vermont in that old BMO.
Oh, there he
Nice.
is.
Hey,
You
Scott.
look like you're at your cottage.
So do you.
Yeah, I do happen to be in Canmore, yes.
Okay. So we've got a couple more people from AMCOM, I think. Isaac and Aiden, welcome.
Hey,
Right.
Nice to see
Hey,
you.
good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
morning.
So I'm
Isaac,
just
we're
gonna
all
get
on, we're all
this-
on, we're all on camera this morning, though. just
Yeah,
saying.
there's
there we go.
Isaac.
There we go.
Hey, okay.
Hey,
You know what? I'm just gonna get this started. It is being recorded for a few people that couldn't make it today and just wanted to hear about what we were chatting about, so they can't chime in. We can assign tasks to them then. But you know, this all started with our education committee. We were together, I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago, and there's some younger people and newer people or new people being involved in Camex, and they were kind of asking about the history of Camex. And we're a little surprised that it is our 59th anniversary this year with our 59th annual conference. So we decided to, put something together, but I didn't want to make it this dry presentation. So I invited Paul along because he had some great stories and some history, and then for all of his pals to join in as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with,
Linda, can I
yes,
just before you do that,
Yes.
Mike Leibowitz just texted me. He doesn't have the login credentials.
oh. Okay, let me stop this, what I'm doing.
You want, I can send them to him if you want.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, send them
okay.
to him.
Yeah, will do.
Okay,
And a quick question, Paul, I can't remember, are you a founding member?
Let me go off camera here and just respond, Doug.
Linda, that was 59 years, you did say, right?
That was
Yes.
59 years ago. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
started in 1964. So, yeah, I wanted to have Michael in here, for sure. He's gonna add some stuff for us as well. What I'm gonna do then is I'm just gonna start sharing, my screen. And I've got some of the, we'll call it the dry material to start with. Oop, I'm doing something wrong here. Yeah, let's stop doing that. But of all the times I do this, there we go. Okay. So again, you know, we were asked from the education committee to put something down and for recording. And so this is some of the dry stuff. So of course, this is where we really began, right? Back in the day with our cord boards. And well, before that, this was black phones on a table somewhere. And again, I know that Paul has some stories for you on all of this stuff. So basically, we're an industry trade, not-for-profit, industry trade association representing telephone answering services and now call centers. And, you know, we're really there to share best practices. And I think for, you know, as far as, you know, what we're really known for is our training, our quality training, and we give it at every level. So back to the very beginning, we have the Telephone Answering Association of Canada, TAC, was started in 1964. And the first president of the association was Mr. Larry Aaron of Ottawa, Ontario. TAC stuck around in that name from 64 to 85. And then in 85, the Canadian Association of Message Exchanges, Inc. was born, CAMEX for short. And then in 2001, we adopted the byline of the Canadian Call Management Association. So under the leadership of Don Swift, the president in 84-85, the Telephone Answering Association of Canada underwent that transformation to CAMEX. And this is from some of the minutes back then. So in addition to the name change, a number of other changes as recommended by the restructuring committee took place. And that was the development of a very futuristic high-tech logo, which is on the bottom left-hand of our screen, a revised set of bylaws, an initiation of an industry-wide errors emissions insurance package, a group insurance package, and also a Canadian Design Supervisor Seminar, which would run on an ongoing basis. And today, that's the Coach U that we do. And, you know, we're trying again to go, we try to go east and west every year. So back to that history, 97, 98, our president, David Rattray, introduced the CAMEX website. And in 98, 99, Jeff Moran introduced this updated logo. So also the byline was introduced with the 2001 president, Kerry Paul, and that became the Canadian Call Management Association. The message exchanges didn't really say what we did as far as that board was concerned. So our mission statement today is, as the national voice for the Canadian call management industry, CAMEX contributes to our members' profitability by fostering a willingness to exchange ideas, experiences, and solutions while promoting the general welfare and ethical standards of the industry. Now, I don't have lots and lots of photos, but I came across this one, and I knew that both Doug and Paul were going to be on this.
Geez.
So second from your left is Doug Swift, and second from the right is Paul Lloyd. I don't know if you guys can identify anybody else in there.
Damn, I had hair. Wow. That was...
And I think that's circa 1980. And then just to bring it forward, it was just one that I pulled. This is 2011 circa, I think. Doug, you were on that board again there. And God rest his soul, Tom Sheridan was our president back then. And there's some familiar faces in there as well. And Steve Newell, who's back on our board, is our vendor rep, which is kind of great. So client expectations have really changed. I mean, what we're doing for your clients now are wild and wonderful things. No longer are you just taking a basic message. And CAMX continues to evolve through all of this. So with having said those dry words now, oh, there's Michael Leibowitz on, good. I'm going to hand it over to Paul Lloyd.
Well, I go back a little further than 1984 and 85. I think my first association event was maybe 1971 in Brantford, Ontario, and Hilton Lyons was the president that year. And it was at the Holiday Inn in Brantford. It's probably not the Holiday Inn anymore, but for Carlton, Brantford, by the way, is the birthplace of Wayne Gretzky.
I thought you were going to say the birthplace of the telephone too.
I know.
Sometimes people think that was, you know, Boston or somewhere.
Not to mention Scott Lyons.
You guys are crack ups.
So yeah, that was 1971, and that was, and Hilton was the president, and I remember it vividly because they had a session on using color coding to make the switchboards more effective. So they talked about things like now this, you know, like it was my first year in the business, and I think I was working part-time. So they were talking about chicken rings. Chicken rings that were used for chickens, and you would put them on the on-off switch, and that would represent something. And then the bulbs, the little light bulbs that would
Opals, Paul, the opals.
Opals. Oh, that's right. Yeah, good one. Yeah, good one, Gary. Opals. They talked about using nail polish to make the colors different. So if it was a green, it was 9 to 5. It was orange, it was 8 to 6. It was red, it was 24 hour. But it was green with a little pink dot of nail polish on it. It was 9 to 5, just Monday to Friday. And if it was 24 hours with a little green dot on it, a nail polish, it wasn't 24 hours. It's just from like 5 o'clock at night till 9 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I thought it was kind of an odd session, and I still remember it today. And by the way, we used nail polish on the opals, and we used chicken rings, and we bought them from Renee Baker, who was our first executive director of the Telephone Answering Service Association of Canada. So that was my first exposure to CAMX. And there was a guy from, not even sure if I should say this, but
You will anyway.
from Trois Rivières. Who would that be, Gary?
No idea.
Oh, good. I'm glad you don't know. Anyway,
Can't get sued, Paul.
I was very young. I was like 20 or 21, and and hadn't been outside of Hamilton, Ontario my life, and here I am, like 20 miles away in Brantford, and this guy comes in with his mistress, and I thought that was kind of a great idea, by the way, but I'm glad we don't remember his name. Oh, maybe Brenda remembers his name. It doesn't matter, I guess, but it was a memorable event. Is there something else? I can talk about the name change if you want me to talk about the name change.
Sure.
So in 1984, Brenda, I'm not sure if, were you on that committee, the name change committee?
No, I was not.
Well, that was the only committee you weren't on.
That's why it got all botched up with that brochure.
We had a name, huh? Say that again?
That's why you botched it all up with the brochure. Remember you printed 5,000 of them and it had a spelling error?
No,
Oh, I did.
I forget the mistakes. So we had a name change, Don Swift, went through this huge organization in the association. And we went from having a part-time, well, sorry, let me go back. Prior to the name change, we always had part-time executive directors. And of course, we never had an annual awards banquet. That was unheard of. We always had our banquet in somebody's bedroom, in a hotel, of course. And the entertainment, we never had a band. We had Bruce West playing his guitar. And there would be like 30 of us, and we'd be standing around a bed. And Bruce West would be sitting on the bed, and we'd all be singing songs. Of course, we got really, really good after about, after a few hours and a few, soft drinks.
And
But
who
that
was
was
he?
our-
And who was he
that was-
related to, Paul?
Pardon me,
And who was he related to?
Bruce?
Helen.
Helen, yes,
Yeah.
yes, she was our executive director. And
Oh, by the way, we still have a part-time executive director. She only works 20 hours a day.
Good point. Anyway, that was our, those were our meetings, and we had good meetings, but we had a lot of laughs at our annual awards banquets that were held around somebody's bed. And then Don Swift came along, and the Swift family sort of revolutionized the entire industry, certainly in Toronto, and then with the association. So we went from a part-time executive director to a full-time executive director. And I think, Brenda, that was you.
That was 86.
Was that 86?
Yeah.
Weren't you the first executive director of Chemex?
Yes. Well, I'm not sure what Helen's title was, to be fair, but I followed Helen. It happened in Bermuda.
Right. And we hired you because, of course, you're bilingual.
Are we going to get on that again?
Well,
Yeah,
you pointed out Paul's mistake. Fair, Brenda.
I never
Didn't
said
we-
I was bilingual.
Didn't we poach Brenda from the Paging Association?
We did. That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. We did.
I just wanted a free trip to Bermuda.
It worked.
It all worked out great. It was great. It was great.
And
Anyway,
here
we
you
said-
are.
We had a committee, and the committee was set up to develop a new name for the association, because in those days, the industry it was a dying industry. It was dying a slow death, supposedly, and the service was not very good that we provided, because the quality of the service that we provided was in direct proportion to the tenure of the operator that was answering the phone at that particular time. So if somebody who's been with you for 3 years, the caller would get excellent service, and somebody who'd been with you for a month, they would get horrible service. So it was an imperfect service, and the word telephone answering service was not very popular, and it didn't have a very good connotation. So we thought it was a good idea to change the name, or Don Swift thought it was a good idea to change the name. So he formed a committee, and we sat on the committee for several months, and we finally decided that the name should be either the Canadian Association of Message Exchanges or the Canadian Organization of Message Exchanges. But when we worked out the acronym, neither acronym seemed to work well for us. Neither one.
I knew you were going to go there.
So we couldn't figure that. We were stumped. We couldn't go any further than that. And then I was flying out to Calgary with Don Swift, and I said, we're having a tough time with this. The acronym is either come or came, and we're not happy with either one of them. He says, I can understand why not. And he said, well, what about Chemex, C-A-M-X? And bingo, that was the name, and it's been the name ever since. So that was sort of like a 5-minute conversation on the plane to Calgary. And we'd been working on this name change for about 4 or 5 months. So that's how the name Chemex came to be.
Paul, you mentioned there about something that was going to make our industry go down the toilet. We weren't going to exist anymore. And I know that through the years, there have been many things that have come up, and predictions of, oh, we're gonna die. We're not gonna have live operators anymore because voicemail is the new thing, or whatever. Maybe you can talk about some of the challenges that happened in our industry and how everybody recovered through all of this stuff.
Well, when I got into it was supposed to have gone out of business. The industry was dying a slow death. And it was a terrible level of service that we provided the callers and therefore our customers. But now the telephone answering machine had been invented for years prior to this, but when they finally allowed us to connect the telephone answering machine to the telephone network, because we finally got interconnection in the late 70s, and prior to that, you had to rent any phone equipment from the telephone company. But when the telephone answering machine came into being, it was the biggest competitor of the telephone answering service industry. So prior to that, the prerequisite for being a good telephone operator was how quickly you could talk and how many people you could put on hold. And then this telephone answering machine came out, and that was scary. And for a number of years, and it was scary for a lot of people who had been in the business for a long time, and they sold out, and we got some new folks getting into the industry, including the Swift family, of course. And then, of course, the voicemail technology came out in, I'm going to say the early 80s. Yeah, the early 80s. I mean, it might have been around for a while, but it was perfected in the early 80s. And of course, that was going to put us out of business too. And then, of course, the cellular telephone was going to put us out of business as well. But then technology came around, and it saved us. And when I got into business, it was going to go out of business. And I have been involved in a number of different businesses over the last 50 years. And the only business that I was left in when I retired was the telephone answering service business. So go figure.
Yeah. And the other thing too, we talk about the quality. So I know that you won't, I'm going to give you the accolades for this, Paul. You were part of the inception of the Award of Excellence program. And you and a number of people on the board at that time, it was before my time, I wasn't on the board at that time, decided that, hey, our service stinks and we got to make it better. And so we got to put some standards together here. So again, the Award of Excellence program came from the telephone answering service industry. It came from the members of CAMEX. The ATSI Award of Excellence program is our program that is now named ATSI. We run it for them, but the inception, and it started in 1989. So why don't you talk a little bit about that committee and what your thoughts were when you were creating some of these standards?
I should let Brenda talk about that, because Brenda was on the committee, and so was Barb Clausen. And who else, Brenda?
Scott was on it.
Scott?
Yeah, but okay, Paul, you were the chair of that. You were the one who really made it happen.
Yes,
But
I was.
one thing that led, oh man, well, I should have known I was walking into that. But
You
one
did.
thing that really brought along the need for us to build an awards program is that, like, when I first started in the business, believe it or not, there was no call forwarding. And remember the old days, so everyone was hardwired in. So I would get a call from the company that Paul now owns, Answer Plus, and they'd say, hey, can you service these exchanges, right? And you go, yes. Well, so you just call around. There was really no competition unless someone started in the exchanges that you could serve. And so it was, my recollection is that the people with the better services, once call forwarding came in, they rose to they were the cream of the crop because they did provide better service. And that's when the group of us sort of realized, hey, we should all be providing that level of service. But that's my recollection, is that we started it shortly after everyone was using call forwarding, and clients were jumping around trying to find maybe not just a better rate, but a better service.
And if I can I add something there? Because I was around in those days as well. It was not that we were all offering crappy service. I kind of take a little bit of offense to that.
Sorry,
I think what it was either hit or miss service, because we didn't have all of the ability to be able to log calls and listen to calls and see what agents do, screen capture, all the stuff that we have today nowadays that can, like, give us a complete picture. And so when we left the office at 5 o'clock, when management walked out, it was kind of like in God's hands. And when a client's caller would complain, we had no equipment, we had no way of verifying. It was always a he said, she said thing. And we all know, since loggers came into play, that, oh, whoops, callers and clients exaggerate. So I was like a young kid, and the thing that drove me crazy, because anybody who knows me that quality is my one thing that drives me more than anything else in all aspects of my life. And when this program came into place, it was like the beginning of the real serious effort to make this industry have standards and really be something that, as an owner or an employee, you could walk around and hold your head a lot higher. Nothing, I've said this before, and I have to say this again on this call, for those of you who weren't around in those days, you have no idea that the one thing that this association has done by the creation of the Award of Excellence program nothing has changed this industry for the better, not even close as that program. And I say that with all sincerity.
I think I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Well
scripting's
said.
a pretty close second.
What's that, Paul?
Scripting,
Oh, well,
yeah, my opinion.
Well,
only.
I think technology
Yeah.
has certainly put us at a completely different level. What I found interesting back then was that there were sort of two types of organizations in our industry. One was people like us, who it was our primary business. And so we put our heart and soul into it. There was a lot of companies back then that it was a secondary business for a lot of the owners.
That's true.
So they did not put the same effort, nor did they have the same passion that we did. And I think if I look back in those days in the early to mid 80s, if somebody said to you, "Oh, so what do you do?" we would all kind of like sort of hang our head and go, "Oh, telephone answering service business." You know, we were not. I think we were more concerned about the perception of what we did than our customers were. So I think changing the name and the program, the Award of Excellence that you started, Paul, those were two things I think that helped us to have a little better perception of ourselves and what we did. And then we helped each other, obviously, and we grew together. But the people that had the secondary organizations, they either were bought out by people like us, or they just kind of went by the wayside because they did not have any interest in investing in those organizations. So I think that was part of what CAMX was all about when it was born.
I think that one of the things that, if I may, I don't know if you guys have sort of an agenda, but I think right from the very outset, if I recall right, the reason why the association became an association back in the day, which might be really interesting for those folks who are really interested in the history part of things, is it was a collective that was brought together, as you mentioned at the beginning, Paul. There was no interconnect in those days. We all had to rent our switchboard equipment from whatever phone company was the telco in our area. And as a result of that, we basically were at their mercy. And the group of owners at the time, I think, when they decided to do this, create an association, was to have a collective voice to the CRTC in order to make sure that the phone companies didn't one day decide in their best interest to put us all out of business. And I think that was the collective. And Brenda, as you pointed out, because before call forwarding, we were all very localized. I mean, even in the island of Montreal, if you wanted to serve the entirety of Montreal, I think you used to have 14 different locations. And so the competitiveness factor was not what it looks like today by any stretch of the imagination. So you could get 400, 500 owners together. There was a lot of small centers, Doug, as you pointed out, people that have secondary businesses who would come together. The association numbers were much larger, but the companies were much smaller. And it was because there was that camaraderie that we were all fighting a collective enemy that I feel today is the residual of the reason why we have such a strong relationship and a willingness and an openness and a continued vested interest in making sure that everybody is better and stronger and faster as a result of this association. And that's where it originated. Because when I tell people outside my industry about this association and my peg group and, they all look at me like, what? Like they can't believe that people in the same business have the type of rapports, and not just professional. Come on. Lots of us have become very good, dear friends over the years as well. And we're in competition and we don't fight, you know, but I think that's the root of it. That was where it all started. So thank you, Ma Bell, for bringing us all together.
Yeah, well put.
I think one of the steps, the interim between when you had to be within a quarter mile of the CO and when call forwarding came in, was the concentrator.
Hmm.
And I don't know if some of you may not know what a concentrator is. And essentially what it did was it would allow us to serve customers from a different exchange than the one that we were actually physically in. And Amtelco was a good example of this. They had their ugly green box and it was very ugly. But you would take 100 lines coming in to this concentrator. You would pare it down to 4 lines. And I wish Mike Leibowitz was here because he could explain it a lot better than I could.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. And then at the other end, it would expand back to the 100 lines again. These things would forever go down, but they would never go down during the day. They would always go down about 2 in the morning. And they were located in, because we didn't want to spend any money on this, as little as possible. So they would be in places that were probably not where you would really want to go at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I distinctly remember I was the one that got to do that. So I
We
would tell
had
my
one in a
wife.
parking garage. One of
Yeah.
ours was
Yeah.
in a parking garage. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would go out, I'd get the call and I'd go out and I said to my wife, if I'm not back in a couple hours, call the police. So,
Oh, boy. You just referenced Michael Leibowitz. I wanted to introduce to those of you who don't know, Michael Leibowitz was our first American president of the Canadian Call Management Association. And I want Michael to talk about this, but before I do, when I became the executive director in 2000, and it was supposed to be a temporary job for 6 months, 23 years later. But the thing is, we didn't have, so again, so the quarter mile of the Bell CO, all these little mom and pop shops, and then the stronger took over the little ones. And so we have fewer members, but they're stronger, right? So we were looking at where we're going to get new members in CAMEX, and I've got my sales hat, marketing hat on all the time. And then we said, well, look at the United States and ATSI, and let's develop an international membership rate so that if they're a member of ATSI, they can become a member of CAMEX for X amount of dollars. We'll do this reciprocally with the association, and they can also participate in the Award of Excellence program. It certainly wasn't for the reduced membership dues. But in my estimation, my 2 cents, is that I saw the most up and coming smart people in the industry from the United States were the first people to join. Michael Leibowitz, John Ratliff, Alan Fromm, Ken Goldenberg's mom and dad. But so I think that again, we attracted attention, and the smart people knew that there's no division in the border. It's about the intelligence and what we can do in sharing. And then Michael Leibowitz joined the conference. I think it was 2001, the Whistler conference, the first one you were at. And then, so you tell your story about getting introduced to CAMEX.
Well, thank you, Linda. It's good to see everybody. Some faces I saw Paul recently. He stopped by on a drive between Florida and Canada, and I had a lovely few hours with him and Linda. And that kind of typifies what CAMEX has done for me. It's made me friends that are lifelong friends, that are my closest friends. I always like to say that people ask me, why do you bother with Canada? I mean, it's different countries, far away. Why do you even bother to go up there? And my answer has always been that whenever I come home from Canada, I come home a nicer person. you guys have, yes, you guys have made such a difference. Linda invited me. I don't know how she
We
found
think
me.
we think you're nicer now too.
There's a lot of there's a lot of room for improvement. So we can't disagree. And by the way, Paul, I hadn't seen Paul in a while, and he was here, as I said, a few months ago. And this man is trim and fit and full of energy. I'm very impressed, Paul, by what you've done personally. Anyway, Linda found me somehow for Whistler to give a talk on remote agents. The technology had just gotten to the point where we could do that. So I came out, I'd never been to Whistler, and I came out there and it was snowy, and I thought that was really bad. Turns out that was Canadian Nirvana. I was kind of ignorant. So I did that.
Mike, that was a hell of a snowstorm at that conference.
Yeah,
Like
I hadn't met Scott
people were
Lyons yet.
stuck.
we were stuck.
Yep.
Scott Lyons had not yet taught me how to pray to the snow gods, so it was new to me. So that was fun. I enjoyed everybody, and next year I was NAO president, and I invited myself to come to Nassau, and Linda didn't say no, thankfully. And I met a bunch of you there. I can't remember exactly who. I remember Sydney Ryan for sure, and her daughters from Nassau, but I'm sure a lot of you were there. And somehow, I think it was Lil Lyle maybe invited me to run for the CAMX board, and then called me when I won. So it's been it's been a lot of fun. It's been educational. Everyone on this call is close friends. I think I saw Peter Sherman's face up there a minute ago. Is that right? Was Peter on this call?
I wish. I
Oh,
didn't-
no.
I
Okay.
didn't see him.
Hard to say what people look like anymore. Gary Blair, I've gone to visit Gary in Montreal a couple of times, and I can't even imagine how empty my life would be without all the friends I made at CAMX. And then professionally, the Award of Excellence. The Award of Excellence is, as Gary said, is such a significant thing that that I proposed to the NAO last year, that we named Paul to the Eternal Hall of Fame, or whatever they call it now, the list of gods, and everyone agreed immediately. Gary, I think Gary fell into that selection process as well. So the Americans have come to appreciate all of you very, very much. The NAO SASA program is run by CAMX, and the Gary Puddles program is run by CAMX, and it's made such a difference in industry. So again, I just want to acknowledge all of you and thank you for being my friends.
Talking about the Award of Excellence program, it didn't start off as smoothly as we wanted it to. Brent, you're going to have to help me with this one, but.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yes.
We hired that guy, that friend of yours, Paul. Nice,
Oh, the funny
nice,
voice.
with the funny voice. And he would say at the end of every call that he was the cervix exurber.
Who?
He was a customer. We were in the business of renting telephone answer machines at the time, and he was a customer of ours. And he was blind, by the way. He was blind. And he phoned me up one day and he said, I'm having some problems with my telephone answer machine. Can you help me out? And the guy who was in charge of telephone answer machines was on holiday, so I had to take the call. And I said, I'm trying to help him through it. And I said, well, just push the little red button first. And he said, I'm blind. And my response was, I see.
Oh, gee.
Okay.
Oh.
Anyway, I felt so bad. I said to him, I'm going to come over to your house and I'm going to fix your machine for you, which I did. And him and I became pretty good friends. And I thought, this would be a perfect job for him, would be a mystery caller. And so we hooked up a system for him, and he would call, our customers, and we would tape record them on little cassette tapes. And then I introduced him to CAMX, and we started the Award of Excellence program with him being the mystery caller. So, but he did have a little bit of a, was it a lisp, Brenda, or?
He had a distinctive voice.
Yep,
So
yep.
it didn't take long for staff members to know that they were being, that it was a
It
call,
was
an
very,
award
very
call.
distinctive.
Yes.
And he would,
Let's
well,
just
first
leave
of
it
all,
at that.
It was
What's
like,
that?
it was like Pee Wee Herman distinctive.
okay, it wasn't the best pick, but anyway, first of all, he would call all the, you know, if you submitted the names of 15 of your customers for him to call, he would call all 15 like at the same time within a 20-minute period. So as soon as he called, everybody, you know, the one operator would say, to announce all the rest of the operators on the shift, hey, the Chemex mystery caller is calling right now. And then at the end of the call, he would say, okay, just disregard this phone. This is this call because this is a Surfix server. I don't remember that until Brenda told me that story a couple of years ago.
You know, to be fair, that was the infancy of the program. And you
Yes.
have to, any program starts somewhere. So, you know, we can chuckle about it now, but we were just getting it on the ground. And, you know, now it's as slick as can be under Linda's leadership.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to mention this because when I came in, the mystery callers were all around, within driving distance of where the Chemex office was. And we were still using cassette tapes back in the day. And all of the paperwork, all of the CPS forms, those client profile sheets, it was all pieces of paper. And I had to, you know, and it was all faxed or mailed in. And then, you know, there's the physical, you know, putting through their checks and their invoice and all that. And then I was running around to all the callers. And then the judging would happen and I'd have to sit in case the judges weren't agreeing on things. And so then it was through different boards and whatever, we knew that we had to change this. I mean, it was just, I was running around in my car to all these people's houses. So then we progressed to CDs instead of the cassette tapes. And then we really took the big jump to go to an outside provider. And Trish McMaster of Connections, Lil's daughter, she was really instrumental with me. And we went out to Ottawa. We interviewed a bunch of them, put an RFP out, but we chose this particular company called WeCheck, which is now Ipsos. And it was hard for us to give our baby away because they did mystery shopping for all kinds of industries. And we're saying, but we're different, we're special, we're this, we're that. So it really took, you know, it's gone through a lot of changes. And Michael Leibowitz, who's currently on our awards committee right now, knows that we've not launched it yet. It's about to launch for the first one. The first program is AnswerNet in August, is the new web-based CPS forms. So it's like, it's pretty antiquated what your staff are dealing with now. It's a heartache for them to go through. So we're going to make it easier for them. But again, the progression, and you're absolutely right, Brenda, with any program start, Gary Blair here was instrumental in not only, you know, through the awards committee chair for all the years, but the development of the AOE Plus program. And ATSI is now interested in that. We're about to have a call with them next month. Thank goodness their ears are open. And
Taxi members, vote yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we've come, you know, there's been leaps and bounds, and there's been lots of great people that I've worked with on the board of directors through the years that have helped to make those and push those changes through. So
Well, you know, it's come so full circle, Linda. I mean, if you could think of what we just talked about, how rudimentary it was in those days, and I do remember that, and I do remember getting the cassettes in the mail, and you know, having to listen to them, you know, one by one, and the quality of the recordings was all over the map and so forth. And now, I mean, in more recent years, we've had to worry about things like Annie and making sure that the Annies were like legitimate, and so we have to spoof numbers. I mean, this program, it could not be more different nowadays if we did it by design as compared to what it was. I mean, it's been around for how long now? 30 whatever years? 30?
89 was the inception, so
89.
it's 34 years. And
34.
again, the
Every
the
single
whole
year.
yeah. And again, all of those changes, if you look at the scoring criteria, there's been some tweaks and stuff during the years, but you know, again, the scoring criteria is really based on what you need our agents to do, which is a complete and correct message with a really friendly attitude, right? And a helpfulness to the caller. So yeah, it's interesting where all that's gone, but the basis is still there.
I want to.
I have to comment. Sorry, before we actually changed the scoring criteria, I remember being in Kelowna, and I'm sitting with John Ratliff during the awards ceremony, and I think there was, like, of all people who participated, the companies, I think there was 6 or 7 that did not get the award of excellence. And they were both either from Tigertel or from Apple Tree.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not. And the two of us are just sitting there looking at each other going, that makes sense. So,
Oh, no.
And then there was the year, and I don't remember the location, but I remember it being in the West. And we were up for year number 17. And I'm sitting at
tell
the
this
table
story.
with like 8 other owners, and we're all saying where we're staying in the ranks. And of course, you know, you with voice recording equipment, you know where you stand. You know if you know pretty much you've won or you haven't won, and that's. And yet you still have that anxiety before your name, your year comes up, and so forth. And it was Mike Shantz, because we were always neck and neck, was sitting at the table, and so we were like year 17, and Mike goes up, and then it's like, okay, now we're moving on to year number 18, and Ida, remember Ida, everybody? So
Yes.
Ida was still around, Ida was live, and I'm sitting there thinking, there's no effing way that this happened. There's just no way. I got to listen to these calls. And then it went on to year number 18. And then Ida, I saw her walk up and tap Linda on the shoulder. And I went, that's the tap I was waiting to see. And the great part about it was, aside from being absolutely devastated, thinking it's possible we lost, was we got a standing ovation when you said, oh my God.
I know.
I want to
The
add,
only time I've seen a standing ovation at an award of excellence ceremony.
You know,
one
it's
of the
that's
strengths-
the stuff that keeps me humble. I mean, all the time, you know, there's no perfection on this one.
Oh, no, none of us. None of us.
One of the strengths of the program has been Linda's integrity in running it. I distinctly remember, and I learned a strong lesson, the award ceremony in St. John's. I was president of CAMEX that year, and we didn't win. And I had my daughter with me for her first convention, and it was really devastating to see her lose, for her to see us lose. So I went to Linda and said, hey, you know, I'm president. You know, and she gave me the look. Like, it doesn't matter, Michael. You lost. And by the way, I also want to add, I forgot to mention this in my history of CAMEX, is that I had met Brenda in 1999 when she was president of NAEO. And that was when I got the opportunity to come to CAMEX, I thought, wow, if all Canadians are as nice as Brenda, you know, who wouldn't want to go? And then I get to Canada and I find out that everybody loves Brenda. And I wasn't the only one, but I had to share it with all you guys.
Mike, I have to take credit for something. Scott Lyons may have taught you the love of snow, the Canadian love of snow,
Yeah.
But I taught you how to watch hockey. Do you remember the Battle of Alberta?
I am sure.
Okay, I have to share this really quickly. So I was out west, some seminar or something. Michael was there, and we're watching one of the games. And so whoever's winning, whoever's losing, they pull the goalie, right? We all know what that means. So we go the next game. There's about 7 minutes left, and Mike goes, "Wait a minute, Brendan. I know what they're going to do. They're going to pull the goalie." I'm like, "Oh."
It was probably Calgary that was losing.
I think at that time it was, yeah.
Yeah, still is.
Yeah.
So I have to
you-
focus, I just have to go over to Pat Voss for just a second. Because, you know, one of our strengths in CAMEX is about teaching and training and mentoring. And Pat has, from when I met her, she was always so dedicated to giving time and a place to her staff. She did her own growth. She wanted to do some public speaking and went to Toastmasters, and she's always been learning and growing and you know, going for herself, but she wanted to spread that around. And Pat, can you just talk a little bit about maybe from your perspective, CAMX in the programs that we've provided, the stuff that your staff have been able to be involved in, and again, from the mentoring side.
Thank you, Linda. When you mention that, I think back to one of our first coach shoes in Calgary, and we were talking about how to deal with difficult people. So we went around the room and everybody had a chance to talk about dealing with the most difficult person in their office. And one of our members, and I don't think it's fair to use a name, but this member said they had to let one of their employees go because they chewed their toenails at the switchboard.
What?
So I think after that, the term interactive sessions was born, because then everybody got to share. And sometimes you need that therapy just to tell somebody else so you don't think you're crazy yourself. But
Pat, I think we all have stories like that to tell.
I think Brenda has a really good one when she wandered into her office late one night.
What I did, what?
You have a really good story, what you caught an operator doing late one night.
Oh yeah, that wasn't good. I walked in on the evening operator and the lawyer that lived upstairs. We were in a brownstone and they were having sex.
That's how there's more than one story about that one. Brenda.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And the thing
Oh
is,
yeah.
they weren't embarrassed
Big
at
time.
all.
As a matter of fact, there's a whole
Yeah.
volume on that subject.
Anyway,
Hey, Pat, who's the guy standing over your shoulder looking a lot like Don?
yeah, he's all healed up and better now. We can get
All
a little
right.
work out of him these days.
I don't.
Care to tell everybody about Skidum, Pat?
Yeah, that was my first phrase at CAMX. If somebody pissed me off, I skidded them. But I learned that in the trucking industry where they had to skid stuff around like skid shacks and pipe racks and all kinds of things. And thank God for snow, Michael, because you can't skid stuff without snow. You need that activity underneath it.
That was the conference that we met when you gave that presentation on Skidum, Pat.
Yeah,
And it was the only conference session I've ever been where I think everybody in the room was teary-eyed at the end of it, and less so because of the subject and more so because of your bare-boned honesty.
Yeah.
It was just one of the most moving presentations I've ever attended.
well, thank you, Gary. So for me, CAMX has been a speaking gift and an opportunity to learn more myself and then share it. So that's really for me what it's been about, and only for 27 years, I might add.
Oh, you're a newbie.
I am, Doug.
You know, and Pat registers so many people and staff to the coach shoe and to convention and different things that we've done and certification. You know, sometimes the joke was there's so many people, so many staff at these functions, we said, who's answering the phone? You know, she was giving the opportunity to so many people. And you know, that's it just, again, it's, I mean, it's your love for CAMX, but your love for your people and what you do for them is, I bow down to you. I think it's pretty cool.
Yep.
And another one I'm going to center out is Scott Lyons,
Yes.
because I've had an opportunity to work with his staff multiple times. And I've seen Scott grow through the years, and you are so well respected. And the family that you've created and the culture within your organization is top notch. And so why don't you say a couple of words about what CAMX is to you, Scott?
What CAMX is to me, thank you for those kind words. CAMX, and both Michael and Paul said it. I mean, CAMX is now like some of my best friends are industry friends, right? And CAMX friends. I remember the days and I don't know, bald hair and gray beard. I probably look older than I am, but I remember when the telephone answering machine was going to
No,
ruin
you
the.
look your age.
Yeah, yeah. You know, we would buy a telephone answering machine for $700 and rent it out for $30 a month and hope that that somehow kept a customer or got a new customer that someday we would sell live service to and all that kind of thing. But you know, these days with technology, and the next thing everybody's going to be talking about, oh, this is going to kill the industry, is all this AI stuff, right? And so we'll go right through all of that the same way we have everything else. But the story that I tell people about what we do and how we do it and what our service is, and it's the same for everybody, right? Our product is our people. And I've got friends in manufacturing and all kinds of other things, you know, and they want to improve what they do. They want to improve their product. They go out and figure out how to build a better widget, right? Or how to do something. Well, if we want to improve our service, we go and we improve our people. We build our people. So along with what you were just saying with Pat, is the more that we can grow our people, whether even we put a lot of emphasis on outside personal growth of our people, so that they, you know, the happier life that someone is leading has nothing to do with being at work, but the more satisfied that they are personally in all that they do, they just inherently bring that into work, and that inherently translates into the work that they do on the phones or on the email or whatever they're doing, and the ultimate service to our clients, right? So that is, and the whole idea of Chemex is just all of us sharing these ideas, right? And the rising tide that floats all boats. So it's, yeah, that's what Chemex is. For me, I went to look today. I should send to you, Linda, if you don't have it. I have a picture somewhere of that very first conference in 1964. All the people that were at that, my grandparents
yeah.
are in it along with my parents. There's maybe 30 people or something. I thought I had it digitally, but I don't, but I'll try and find one and get
Okay.
it to you. But yeah,
Can I just add? Yeah. I just want to add something about Scott's organization. We were very much a culture organization at Tigertel. And it was, like you said, the growth of your people within and outside the organization was so very important. But I remember I was meeting with my accountant. I was in Oakville and my accountant was in London. So I called Scott and I asked, would I be able to use his boardroom to meet with my accountant? He said, sure. And he had just recently moved into his new offices. And I walked into that office, and the way that the warmth that was shown to me when I came in, and just walking around the office, on the way out, I just said to Scott, I want to work here. Will you hire me? And you've just built such an incredible, I mean, most of the people on this call that I know have excellent cultures within their organization. And I think that word's a little bit overused. I kind of like organizational health better, but you are definitely a level above the rest of us. So congratulations.
I second that, Doug, 110%. Yep.
Scott, I met you at an industry event in Chicago in around 2001 or two, and we bonded over Rotary. We exchanged Rotary pins. And then when I invited myself to join your pay group, you didn't say no.
Well,
Linda,
thank you guys. You know,
you-
it's a collective sharing like this that grows, and this is how us as owners that don't have, you know, a manager or a boss or somebody who is making us accountable. It's this kind of sharing and learning, especially in pay groups, but in some of the subset of Chemex groups and ATSI groups and NAO groups. That's where we're all learning to get better and do things right. So yeah.
Yep.
Okay, if
And
I
for
can
the-
just add something, it's working, Scott, because I was lucky enough with Linda to meet a group of agents, many from your organization, many from Answer Plus, Alliance. They were all in the Eastern Canada. No, Pat, you sent some.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was absolutely blown away by the quality of the people, by the respect that they have for their organizations, and just a complete turnaround to what you would have seen 30 years ago. They feel welcomed. Like Linda, we couldn't believe it, could we? In the open forum, how they were sharing things. And I used to lobby to have agent training away from the owners. And I didn't really know how it would go this time. And it was fantastic. The ideas they were sharing with each other, it was just like being at an owners conference. Except it was the frontliners. It was a welcome thing to see. I was honored.
And
We
we
got
are
to do
looking at,
more and more of that.
yeah,
right?
we
I think
are
we
looking
only-
at trying to bring it west. It's just, you know what, it's time and resources. Very quickly, for those of you, the AMCOM people that are here, and I know Diana Gallen's here from Keystone. PEG Group is a profit enhancement group. And it's like a 40% club, and it's owners and businesses that are competitors that get together and share best business practices. And actually they're looking at their statements and everything, like they're like their own board of directors. And they've really, again, when I'm talking about the members of CAMEX, people can't believe that you guys are all competitors and you're that close. You know, never mind the friendliness that you'll have dinner and share wine. You're sharing your companies with each other and really helping each other to grow. So just that we're at the top of the hour. Paul, I'm gonna go over to you.
Can I show one
yes.
picture, Linda?
Yep.
Can you give me screen share?
Yes.
One of
Oh,
our
screen share.
distinguished
Yeah,
members
you
who
sure can. Hang
who
on 2
couldn't be
seconds
here today. He
Yep.
made the mistake of posting this picture many years ago and then tried to recuperate it, you know, that digital footprint, and I wouldn't let it go. Oops, it
Yep.
still says
Go
it's
ahead.
disabled. All right, here we go. But I have it, and I was hoping he'd be on the call today because I wanted to share it. Look familiar? Can you make it out?
Oh, yeah.
Not too pixelated?
Yeah.
My God, how long?
When
ago
I
was
have
that?
shared that before publicly when he was around, I'll tell you, I get the look of death.
Yeah. You should have been on this call for sure. So Paul, final words?
Well, you know, I just, you can't underestimate the contribution that computerization and automation brought to our industry. You know, with call distribution, with the fact that the information pertaining to an account could be exploded on a screen in front of the CSR, as opposed to relying on little pieces of cardboard, call distribution, skills-based routing, oh my God, fax and email, message delivery, so that you weren't inundated with checking calls at 9 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock at night. And scripting, I think scripting was a huge contribution. All of those factors, all of those technology innovations allowed us to do business with people who would never have considered doing business with us in the 80s, or certainly not in the early 80s. And along with the Award of Excellence, I agree, it sort of took us to a whole nother level. We're all doing business with customers who we couldn't have done business with them prior to automation. So that I think computerization saved our industry.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to agree, Paul. You know, we've managed to bear through all of the other technologies that were going to put us out of business, but this one is the one that kept us in business.
Yep.
Look out for AI.
But just one last thing I have to say. Gary's company was Alert answering service.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? It started off as Alert answering service.
Yeah.
And his logo was a big set of red lips. That was his logo. I don't know why you ever got rid of that logo because it was so memorable.
We ended up in Ms. Magazine. And not for all the reasons you want to.
Yeah.
It was the most electric logo I've ever seen. I don't know why you ever got rid of it. It was just, it certainly was memorable, and it was sort of like, that's what we do.
I was, just if I could take 2 seconds, I was at the conference in Kingston last year, and Gary and I are chatting with Sarah McDaniel. And I said to Sarah that the most incredible transformation of the marketing of any organization in this industry I've ever seen is what Gary and Ray Hiltz have done with I-24. It's been really a thing of beauty to watch. And I've told Gary this personally before, so I think if you want to learn how to market your company, watch what Gary's doing.
Well, thanks, Doug. I'll give most of that credit over to Ray. My credit was finding him and hiring him.
Well, that's
What you
part of
do.
it. When
You get the best people you can
get the
find.
best people. That's right. That's
Yep.
right. Hey, guys, we're just past the hour, but first of all, it's great seeing your faces, and I really hope that I get to see you in person in Calgary. Another plug. We're going to have the convention, and we have a Coach U in conjunction with all you guys that are down in Redondo Beach, California. Come out to Calgary, Alberta is a beautiful place for you to visit and share with your friends now. So again, thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for co-hosting with me. It was great to get together for lunch and talk about this before. It was a great lunch.
If I can throw in a plug, Linda, the NAO meeting in Albuquerque in March is going to be another reunion of probably 15 to 20 people that you've all worked with from the US and Canada. So please come on down.
Okay, there you go. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you,
again, I
Linda.
hope to see you all in Calgary.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you
Paul.
bet.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Linda.
Linda. Thanks,
Good to
Paul.
see y'all.
Good to see everybody.